Right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, glory, and honor that's due to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Haha Kwadash. Double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and blessings to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect. Shalom Barakatham. This is going to be a lesson speaking about Galatians, the third chapter. It's not talking about heathen. Okay, this is a topic of debate, and you can pretty much do a same analysis on every book of the epistles of Paul, all right, who were talking to Israelites and who were addressing Israelites. And we're going to, maybe in another lesson, I'll go into what salvation actually is, okay? Because there's a lot of splitting of hairs, a lot of semantics, a lot of sensationalism, going on, implying that heathen can get salvation without really. I never really got a full, clean answer on what salvation is. Okay, and it's not just the deliverance out of America; it's really the laws in our inward parts. Okay, that's truly what saves us. Everything would happen all over again. We go back into captivity if we didn't have, you know, our bodies changed. But anyway, I'm gonna go through the book of Galatians 3 and 4 real quick. Okay, just to break down. This is the main precept they go to, verses 7 and 8. And Christians go to this, which is sad that Israelites are now taking on this mantle of saving everybody. You know, but we'll go through and you'll see clearly that these are Israelites. Okay, that Paul is talking to. Okay, you can't just read and pick up things and pick out verses that sound like this and sound like that, and you're missing the overarching context. But anyway, I'm gonna start at verse 7 and I'm gonna go back up and read. Okay, Galatians 3 and 7. Know ye therefore that they which are of the faith, the same are the children of Abraham. Okay, and so Christians will say this. Well, there it is. You're a child of Abraham if all you need is faith. Okay, but you're forgetting that there were more people on the earth, all right, that didn't come out of Abraham. Okay, yes, Abraham might be a father of many nations, but there's still a lot of other nations. Okay, you got the Hamites, and you have the Japhites. Okay, those that came from Ham and Japheth, and not even everybody that came out of Shem is of Abraham. All right, so what about the rest of those people? You know, and it says in verse 8, and the scripture, foreseeing that the Most High would justify the heathen, and through faith preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. So this is what they go to, all right, to basically say, look, whether you like it or not, heathen going to be blessed. No, what this is telling you is you don't have a choice. Okay, the Deuteronomy 28 is now going to apply to the heathen now. Okay, the Lord gave it to us. All right, he said, I set before you life and death, choose life. Okay, and if we didn't choose life, what happened to us, man? The Heavenly Father put the took his belt off and beat our ass. And now you think the heathen are just going to be some exception now? No, absolutely not, man. That all this is saying is that you will be beholden to the law just like we were without being able to keep the law. Because remember, we're going to have the bodies that never go off again, which is true salvation. All right. You're listening to these people, read little things out of context and not knowing like what's going on. Okay, now let's go back up to verse 1. It says, "O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that ye should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Yahweh Shai Mashiach hath been evidently set forth, crucified among you." Okay, so he's addressing the Galatians directly. Okay, he's specifically saying, you Galatians. Okay, that's important for a verse later down the line. Okay, he's saying it right here. You Galatians, oh foolish Galatians. Okay, he says, this only what I learn of you, receive ye the Spirit by the works of the law, or by the hearing of faith. Okay, and so he's going to break down works versus faith. All right, it says, "Are ye so?" And he did this to all of the regions that he wrote to. Okay, are ye so foolish, having begun in the spirit, are ye now made perfect by the flesh? If ye have suffered so many things in vain, if it be yet in vain. Okay, he says, "He therefore that ministered to you and worketh miracles among you, doeth he by the works of the law or by hearing of faith?" All right, so he's basically being what do you call it, sarcastic, I guess you will, going into, hey, listen, you need to rely more on your faith than the spirit, than the works of the law. Okay, and there's plenty of lessons on why that is the case. That we can't keep that law fully. Okay, if you're guilty of one, you're guilty of them all. So what do we need? An intercessor. Okay, but you can't be interceded for if you don't have faith in Yahushua. All right, and it says, verse 6, even as Abraham believed in the Most High, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. All right, so we know he's breaking this all down to the Galatians specifically. Verse 7 again, know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. See, Abraham was not just chosen because of his lineage. Okay, his father could have did the right thing, all of his people. Okay, but they didn't, because they didn't have the faith in the Most High. They have the same lineage, but not the faith. Okay, and you got the same thing today. Jake thinking they just because they told that they're Israelites, they can just do whatever they want. They're good. No. Okay. It says in the scripture, "Foresee it that the Most High would justify the heathen through faith, preach before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed." And see, they get excited with that. Okay, but that's just the upside of it. They don't tell you that they're under the law, and they will not have the ability to consistently do it. Okay, and it says, so then they which be of faith are blessed with faith for Abraham. It says, for as many as are the works of the law are under the curse, for it is written, cursed is everyone that continueth not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. Uh-oh. So are the heathen going to be perfect to be able to just do the book of the law? No, that's why the Lord set us up. We're going to be perfect now. We're going to be the temple. We're going to be the governing body, the government, to ensure these things go down. Okay, and if they don't, okay, you can read Revelation 2. Okay, I'll go to it real quick. Why is this written? Revelation 2 and 27, it says, "And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter's of the potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father." Okay, so why is that written? They're going to be broken into shivers, ruled with a rod of iron, because they're not going to be perfect. Okay, many of them are going to scoff and talk shit. Okay, some heathen will be good; they'll be decent. Some heathen you'll favor, you'll like, and you're gonna marry some of them. You know, now they won't be a wife, on the level of an Israelite woman, but they're gonna be married to you. Okay, some of them. Okay, some of them are gonna give their daughter. Some of them are gonna have enough common sense to at least try to keep the law, and some of them are gonna rebel, man. Okay, you guys like to forget collective punishment, like the Lord didn't do collective punishment with us. Didn't Jeremiah suffer? Even though the rest of Israel was going off, not Jeremiah, but he still suffered, had to suffer things. Okay, got hands put on him. But the heathen, they don't. That doesn't apply to them. You know, it says, verse 11, "But that no man is justified by the law in the sight of the Most High. It is evident, for the just shall live by faith." Okay, it says, "And the law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them." All right. So again, it's going on faith. It says, "Yahweh Shai Hamashiach hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith." Okay. So we're talking about two levels of blessings here. Okay. All right. Because we were called Gentiles, being called back in to be grafted back in. says, verse 15, brethren, I speak after the manner of men, though it be but a man's covenant, yet if it be confirmed, no man disannulleth or addeth thereto. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. Okay, he saith not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Hamashiach. And when you go to the actual seed, okay, you will see that we'll go to it. We'll get to it. Okay, it says, "And this I say that the covenant that was confirmed before the Most High Hamashiach, the law, okay, which was 430 years, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. For if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more of promise. But the Most High gave it to Abraham by promise." So what Paul is telling the Galatians, specifically the Galatians, is, look, the Most High was going to give it to us anyway, okay, because he promised it to Abraham. Now, we had conditions given to us by Moses to keep the law, and you'll live and do this and that. But we already knew we wouldn't be able to keep it by that means, okay? We would not be able to keep it by just keeping the law, okay, in these fleshly and carnal bodies, okay? But the Lord promised it to us anyway. So you want to be of the seed of the promise, not the seed of I forgot the other one. I'll get to it. The name of the other one, but you have Isaac and you have Ishmael. Basically, we're going to get to that. Okay, but it's a spiritual thing. Okay, and see, this is why the mercies of David, manifested themselves, because that was a delineation, okay, of the law that you're keeping it versus the spirit in you, okay, being right towards the Most High, okay. David had a heart that was perfect toward the Most High, so even when he went off according to the law, the Lord still honored him, okay. Still allowed his throne to be established. Verse 19, it says, Wherefore then serveth the law? It was added because of transgressions, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made. Okay? And it was ordained by the angels in the right hand of a mediator. So it was a temporary fix until the seed, Yahushai, would be born at the perfect time, at the right time, back on the earth. Okay? It says, now a mediator is not a mediator of one, but the Most High is one. Okay? It says, is then the law against the promises of the Most High? God forbid. All right? So are they at odds? No. It was just a placeholder for something much greater to come. That's the second covenant. Okay? That's when Yahushua crowns us. Okay? Our bodies are changed, and the laws are written on our inward parts. Okay? It says, for if there had been a law given which could have given life, verily righteousness should have been by the law. All right? It says, but the scripture hath concluded all under sin, that the promise by faith of Yahushua HaMashiach might be given to them that believe. Okay, so it's about a belief thing. All right? Now, verse 23 is the main point where it starts when you reveal, when it says, O Galatians, up top, verse 1, O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you? You go back down to verse 23, look what it says. It says, but before faith came, we were kept under the law. So who's the we that Paul is talking to? Okay? Who was given the law? Was it given to Moabites? Was it given to people in Europe? Okay? Asia Minor. Okay? See, this is where they step and trip over themselves, not knowing what they're reading, because they're just missing a ton of context. And a lot of you are missing it on purpose because you want a bag or whatever it is. And it says, verse 23 again, but before faith came, we were kept under the law, shut up under the faith which should afterwards be revealed. Okay? So this is before he's talking about the time period before we require just raw faith, which the time that we're in now, we're completely scattered. We're under all of these different captivities. Okay, we don't have a temple. We don't have our own laws that we can keep. We're beholden to the laws of others. Okay, so what do we have? We have faith in this time that we're in now. Verse 24, it says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Yahushua." Okay, so the law is a framework of behavior, but you could do that framework and still be wrong in your spirit. A lot of you are going to keep the law, but then you ain't right in your spirit, and you're going to get to Yahushua, you're going to get rejected, man. Okay, you can't just have one or the other. You gotta put your whole body into it. Okay, your whole spirit into it. Okay, it says, "Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Hamashiach, that we might be justified by faith." So that brings us to Hamashiach, Yahushua. Okay, and because we obey the law to the best of our ability, okay, it's a sign of our faith. Okay, you can't say a man that believes, but then he don't do any work, he doesn't do any lessons, he ain't even stop eating pork. Okay, he ain't stop getting lineups. Okay, he just basically knows he's an Israelite, but he just does everything that the world does. No, man. Okay, you're not going to be justified. You might know that you're an Israelite, but you're not going to be justified. Okay, and it says, but after faith has come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. All right. And see, Paul had to break these things down. Food sacrificed to idols. You know, not over afflicting yourself on the things that you eat and the people that you're around, and getting weighed down on the law. Okay, and so this is the beauty of what Yahweh Shai did for us, man. Okay, for those that are faithful, that are truly faithful and believing, it says, but after the faith has come, we are no longer under a schoolmaster. Okay, now does that mean the law is no longer sin anymore? No. But we don't have to go by the black and white, the jot. We read the law, we understand, we comprehend it. Like Ezekiel says, you read the whole roll, you eat the whole roll. Okay, and then the Spirit deals with you after that, man. And sometimes it's not going to be a clean color inside the lines of what Moses wrote down. All right. So you have to ask yourself, who is the we that were given the promises? If the Galatians were just anybody, man. Okay. The answer is the Galatians were Israelites. That's why Paul is addressing them as we. Okay, and the Galatians were a special, uh, not special, but they were unique, in a way, which I'll get in a second. It says, "For ye are all the children of the Most High by faith, Yahushua Mashiach. For as many of you have been baptized into Hamashiach have put on Hamashiach. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. Okay, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all in Hamashiach Yahushai." Okay, now that's a big verse that you hear broken up a lot, but what they don't get is these are comparative states of one people. Okay, you have Israelites that are male and female. Okay, you have Israelites that are free, and you have free Israelites that are bound. Okay, and then you have Israelites. And this is talking about Jew or Greek. This is talking about geography. Okay, you have Israelites that live in Judea, the Judean province. Okay, which a province is a district under an empire's rule. Okay, which we transfer from the Greeks to the Romans. Okay, but Judea, you had Israelites that lived there. They kept all of the high holy days there. They kept mainly most of our customs. Okay, via the Hasmonean dynasty, and then you had Israelites that were in Greece. And what did they do when they were in Greece? They partook in those activities, man. Okay, you know, took on Greek names, but they were still Israelites. Okay, you Jew doesn't mean uh, you know, house of Judah. This word changed, okay, and it started getting mingled and messed up into different things. Even Herod was considered one, okay, and his wife Priscilla, I believe. I might be able to find that. Is it Jewish or Drusilla? Salakia. I'm thinking about the wrong thing there. But anyway, um, going back, I looked up the Gauls or the Gauls. Okay, now the Gaul region is in north of the Alps. I didn't look that up, but I could get a map. I guess I could. Let me see if that would pull up. Hold on. No, I want the original Gaul region. It's basically the south of France. Yeah, it's over here. Okay, this is Spain. This is going into France. It's south of France. This is the Alps. It goes right over Italy, the Alps mountains. Okay, now it's a natural barrier, and this is where the Gauls were that the Romans eventually took down. Okay, and that's where you get the term Gaelic from. Gaelic languages come from the Gauls, which were Celtic peoples. Okay, the Celts spoke Gaelic, um, and they're just an old tribe there that were taken down by the Romans. Okay, and we found out now many of them had to be Israelites. Okay, because we're going to read here. Okay, oops, Salakia. It says the term Galatians refers to people who migrated from ancient Gaul, modern day France, and surrounding areas to Asia Minor around 278 BCE. Okay. And now that I think about it, these might be holdovers from Hannibal's army. But this is around the time that Hannibal was at war with Rome. Okay. Let me look that up. Hold on. I could be off. The Punic Wars. Okay. So it was a little bit after that. That Hannibal, because Hannibal, a lot of Jakes don't know, um, his main campaign that where he almost took Rome. Um, this is the route he took. Okay, he went. He was down here in Tunisia area. Okay, he would have navies going up to the Buddha Sicily. You got a lot of dark skinned Jakes there. Okay, and Corsica and islands like that. But he went all the way around up Spain. So you got a lot of Jakes through Spain all the way through 1492. Okay, and he went up through the Pyrenees Mountains right here. Okay, all the way across over the Alps. Okay, and he went straight down into Rome. That was Hannibal's attack angle. Okay, this nigga brought elephants and everything. Esau was scared. Um, so that's why I was thinking about that, you know. But yeah, the Gauls, Salakia, those had to be Israelites, man, because we see they were formidable fighters. Okay, it's usually a marker of Jake. I could be wrong, but what the main point is people groups change, man. Okay, you can't just look at the Galatians and think that every nation that was there was just always been there. Okay, they had to be some Edomites that lived there and lived there. No, man, you got to look things up. People change, regions move. Okay, the Spartans were not always Edomites. Okay, you look at particular parts of Greece, you know, and the scriptures give you a clue to these things. Okay, but let's keep going. Salakia, it says these migrants were not deported in the modern sense, but rather a group of Celtic tribes. The Galatians moved and settled in the region after being hired as mercenaries, and after military campaigns, the land they settled became known as Galatia. And that's something Jake was very well known as being drafted into wars as mercenaries. Because why? Because we were formidable fighters. Okay, Esau did the same thing in World War One, even the American Civil War. He enlisted Jake, man, to fight. Right? You know, why would you have a bunch of Israelite men there just sitting there? You got a war going on. If you can use them, you would use them. That'd be like having a gun right next to you in a gunfight and not picking it up. You know, it says the Galatians moved and settled into the region after being hired as mercenaries, and after military campaigns, the land they settled became known as Galatia. Okay, so Galatia is like the Hellenized version of the Gaul region. Okay, where you get the Gaelic languages from, the Celtic peoples who were originally there. Okay, and it says um, migration and settlement, mercenary work. Migration to Asia Minor began around 278 BCE when they were hired as mercenaries by Nicomedes the first of Bithynia. Okay, you can kind of skip down here, all right, to see that the Galatians were not just these natural born Europeans. Okay, these natural born Greeks. You know, peoples and letters to people, they move. Okay, and so the Gauls were basically a military fighting town. Okay, you know, you go to any town in America where you have a major military base or air force base there, you know, the whole town is basically enlisted, you know, or has some kind of fighting experience at least. Okay, but we're going to go back to Galatians and run through verse 4 real quick, chapter 4 real quick. It says, uh, let me see. Okay, I'm gonna just read quick. I'm gonna read quick through it. Galatians chapter 4, verse 1. Now I say that the heir, as long as he is a child, deferreth nothing from a servant, though he be Lord of all, but under but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world. Okay? But when the fullness of the time was come, the Most High sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Okay? So what is the Apostle Paul saying here? Okay? He's likening the law that we were under as being a child. You have an inheritance. Okay? But you're 5, you're 8 years old, you know, you're 10 years old. All right? You're the firstborn, but you're underage. Okay? And so what does that mean? You cannot enjoy the benefits of rulership, of you don't have that same autonomy. You still have to listen to people. Like he says here, tutors and governors. Okay? You need advisors to tell you what to do. Okay? You're the heir to the throne, but somebody's telling you to go to bed, you know? That's how it was under the law. That's what Paul is saying here. Okay? It says to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And because ye are sons, the Most High sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. You become of age. Okay? Like in Jacob and Esau, it says, and the boys grew. Okay? And then eventually their personalities separated. Okay? And there came a day where their father got up in age and had to give them a blessing. Okay? It says, wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of the Most High through Hamashiach. So a son is an adult man. Okay, a son has a right, a stake in his father's estate. Okay, but before that, you're just a child. You're a servant. Okay, it says, "Howbeit then, when ye knew not the Most High, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods." Okay, it says, "But now, after that ye have known the Most High, or rather are known of him, of the Most High, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage." So he's saying, why are you going back and afflicting yourselves with the weight of the law again, knowing that you have Yahushua, man? Okay, look, you're of age. You ain't got to still sweep the floors anymore. You got serpents now. Okay, and that's how we are spiritually. We don't have to be bogged down with every little jot and tittle. Just be right. Okay, understand the law, keep it to the best of your ability, but you operate through the Spirit, man. Okay, it says, verse 10: "Ye observe days and months and times and years. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. Brethren, I beseech you, be as I am, for I am as ye are. Ye have not injured me at all. Ye know how through infirmity of the flesh I preached the gospel unto you at the first. And my temptation was in my flesh, ye despise not, nor rejected, but receive me as an angel of the Most High, even as a Mashiach Yahushua." Okay, where is then the blessedness ye spake of? I bear you record that if it had been possible, ye would have plucked out your own eyes and had given them to me. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Okay, because this is a tough thing getting through the heads of Israelites that are born in these foreign countries, man. Okay, adopting all of these weirdo idolatrous practices. Okay, it says, I'm gonna skip down to verse 21, get to the main point. It says, verse 21: "Tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, do ye not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, okay, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman." Okay, and this goes back into chapter 3. Okay, being born of the Spirit, you're going to understand what that means in chapter 4 instead of just picking out Galatians 3 and 7, verse 7 and 8. All right, it says, verse 23: "But he who was born of the bondwoman was born after the flesh." Okay, but he of the free woman was by promise. Okay, and spiritually, this applies to Israelites as well, those that are just so meticulous to the law, like the Pharisees were. Okay, and other sects in Israel. Okay, you're operating as if you're under the bondwoman when the promise was given to you, man, of the promise of the woman of the promise. It says, "But he of the free woman was by promise." Okay, so Paul had to break these things down to various groups that were essentially out of their minds. Okay, when the Lord scatters you and puts you in a different nation, that's a curse, man. Okay, don't know what's going on now. A lot of Israelites knew that they were Israelites, and they would still come down and go to Jerusalem, you know. But they, a big number of them were not. Okay, even the ones that were still had you know uh, bugged out belief systems. Okay, it says, verse 24. I say, "Which things are in," I'm gonna go to verse 23 again, but he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise, which things are an allegory. Okay, what's an allegory? Okay, it's like a metaphor. Okay, so it's a metaphor in story form. Okay, it says, "For these are the two covenants." Okay, the one from Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. Okay, so the one that Moses gave us out of Mount Sinai was likened to Hagar. Okay, when you read that story in Genesis 21, all right, you see it says, "For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is." Okay, and is in bondage with her children. So you're less than if you just are just stuck on the law, man. Okay, why? Because Yahweh Shai has came back, man. Okay, and redeemed us from the curse of the law. So, but here you are still intentionally inflicting yourself with the curse of the law. You know, knowing that we can't keep the whole thing. Okay. Now, does that mean you don't keep the law to the best of your ability and show forth? It's through your spirit. Okay. It says, verse 26, but Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. What does us mean? Okay. Is Jerusalem the actual mother of everybody? In NLT, I believe it'll say Sarah there actually. Could be wrong. Yeah. Verse 26, it says, but the other woman, Sarah, represents the heavenly Jerusalem. She is the free woman and she is our mother. Okay? Now, it doesn't take a genealogy degree to understand who the mother is then that the promise goes to. Okay? Say Sarah is our mother, right? How many sons did Sarah have? One son. Uh oh. That son is what? Isaac. Okay. So there's only one man that came out of Sarah who's the mother of us all. Okay. Well, how many sons did Isaac have? Two sons. Look how that popped up. Two sons. Isaac prayed for her and she conceived. Rebecca gave birth to twin boys, Esau and Jacob. Okay. And we know the story of this. Who got the blessing and who didn't. Okay. So when you go to Galatians 4, who is the us here? Okay. Who is the us? Going down to verse 26 again, but Jerusalem, which above is free, which is the mother of us all. Okay? Verse 27, for it is written, rejoice, thou barren that bearest not, break forth and cry that thou travailest not, for the desolation, the desolate hath many more children than she which hath a husband. Okay? And this is the Lord speaking to Sarah. Okay? Because Hagar was known as the desolate. She had kids, man. Okay? Keturah had a lot of kids for Abraham. Okay, it says, now we, brethren, as Isaac was, are the children of the promise. Okay, so who are the Galatians again, man? When Paul is speaking about we, he's going back to the lineage, going back to Abraham, telling you the seed that the Lord is dealing with came from his wife Sarah, who only had one son, Isaac, who we know gave his blessing to who? Of the two sons, Jacob. Okay, it says, but as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. Okay. And you can go back to that account in Genesis 21. Ishmael is making fun of Isaac. Okay. They're young in age, and Sarah got mad and said, kick her out, man. Get rid of this woman. Okay. See, her son is not gonna, you know, be in competition with my son for the throne. You know, she read the spirit on little Ishmael and had him and his mother kicked out. Okay, says, but verse 29 again, but as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. Okay. And those Ishmaelites still came into the land, calling themselves, the seed of the promise, you know, you know, latching on, you know. A lot of people tried to claim to be quote unquote Jews. That's why that term Jews became a thing, because it was referencing the Judean province, but you still had different peoples that lived there, man. Okay. Verse 30, it says, nevertheless, what saith the scripture? Cast out the bondwoman and her son. Okay. Does that sound like the all nations can be saved, can partake of salvation? It says, cast out the bondwoman and her son. And we read earlier, this is allegory, okay, for those that are going to be under the promise, which we're going to operate through the spirit with those bodies in the kingdom. They're going to operate under the bondwoman. Why is it referring to them as the bondwoman? Because they're going to be under bondage of the law, captivity. Now, will they have the ability to be blessed? Yes. But are they? you know, when the Lord wrote to us, okay, that choose life or death, and he wrote down the curses and the blessings, the moment he wrote down those curses, we were going to go off and partake of those curses, man. Okay? Is it here? It might be Genesis 12, I'm thinking about. Because what you when you read here, the Lord blessed Ishmael, okay, and said he would have many nations, but he didn't get the promise, okay. And why did he bless Ishmael? Because he's a son of Abraham, okay. He literally got some crumbs for no other reason than he was the son of Abraham, okay, and he became a great nation, all right. And what does that mean? You're going to have a degree of a covering, just being partaking of being under the umbrella. Okay, so if you're under the law, you're going to be good, but if you're not, you're going to get jacked up, man. Point blank, period. And many of you are not going to keep the law. Okay, and we will be the judges of that. Okay, you heathen are a possession. Okay, that's what it's going to boil down to. All right, finishing on verse 31, it says, "So then, brethren, we are not the children. We are not children of the bondwoman. Who is we? Okay, but of the free." Okay, so I'll end it there, man. Lord willing, this is edifying. Call Yahweh Yahweh Shai Shalom. Come Yahshua.